This is a shiur on Likutei Sichos, Chelek Chof Vav, Mishpatim, the second Sicha base. In the end of our Sedra, after the Torah finishes the Parshas Dinim, it talks about all the laws that Parshas Mishpatim is full of. Dinim, all the laws of guardians and so on and so forth. And then the Parsha says, Hine anechi shaleach malach, speaks about the ongoing journey that the Bnei Yisrael are going to be led by an angel to go to Eretz Yisrael. Then the Torah says in the seventh portion of the reading of Mishpatim, Vel Moshe Amar Alei Hashem, to Moshe Hashem said, come up to Hashem. So Rashi says, on these words, Vel Moshe Amar Alei, to Moshe, he said, go up. And he says, this parsha was said before the Aseret Adibros. In other words, this parsha is really said in the narrative and what's being taught us in Parshas Yisro, the previous parsha, and this took place on the 4th of Sivan, that Hashem told him to go up. Now, you know the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan, so this is as part of the run-up. 4th of Sivan, Hashem says, go up, and this is going back to that story. In other words, this parsha is not chronologically placed, because in Yisro we finished talking about the Aseret Hadibros. Now we have a whole many halachas of Mishpatim, which were given to Moshe, and he taught it to them. He was given to him during the 40 days and 40 nights that he was up in the mountain after he got the Aseret Hadibros, right? He went up the next day. After he told us all those details about those halachas from 40 days after Har Sinai, now the Torah goes back and tells us, really, we're missing some information about what took place before the giving of the Torah. Now, the reason why Rashi, who explains Pshutei Shel Mikra, needs to say this, that this is a non-chronologically placed parsha, and not like some others that learn Pshat. There's Ramban, there's Ibn Ezer, Rashbam, and so on. They learn that, no, this is a properly placed parsha. Moshe came down from Har Sinai, and now, when Hashem says go up, this is going up after. This is for the 40 days going up. But why does Rashi not say that? So, for several reasons. First of all, the language in the pasuk that to Moshe Hashem said go up, not and Hashem said to Moshe, Vayemer shel Moshe, it sounds like this is recounting something that had already been said earlier. This doesn't sound like a new thing. This sounds like a recap of something before, number one. Also, number two, from the entire content of what this seventh parsha of Mishpatim is going to tell us. It's all about the covenant, the bris. It's all about things that fit very much into a preparation for receiving the Torah. And it would logically make sense that this took place before the giving of the Torah, not that this is after the Torah is given, after the 10 Commandments are given. Now, the next day later, on the 7th day of Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu is being asked to make a bris, to make a covenant between the Yidden and Hashem. It doesn't fit here, logically, l'chayre. However, on the other hand, there's reasons why the other Mefarshim do say that this is following a chronology. And B'chlal in Rashi, although we know that there's a rule, Ein Muktam Umucha B'Torah, there's no before and after in the Torah. In other words, the Torah does not follow a chronological order. Nonetheless, it's not just like that haphazard. There needs to be a reason why the Torah doesn't follow the order of history, the order of chronology. Like we see that Rashi has explained to us that when it says that Terach died in Charan, at the end of Parshas Noach, and then in Parshas Lech Lecha, it says that Hashem told Avram, leave your house. Really, the instruction to leave your house was before Terach died. So why does the Torah place the death of Terach in the Torah in a non-chronological order? And there Rashi says, because it's so that people shouldn't say Avraham left his father without anybody to take care of him. So therefore the Torah wrote it in a different order of events so that it should look different. So in other words, there needs to be a reason why the Torah doesn't place things chronologically. So why is it that the Torah would tell us the whole story of the giving of the Torah, and now would go back and fill us in information that we seemingly should have been told earlier? Goes back to the 4th of Sivan to tell us what else took place on that day. especially that it turns out that the whole order of the story is very unusual, tamua, even quite strange. Let's understand. In Parshas Yisro, we're told about the preparations for the giving of the Torah. So it starts from the second day of Sivan and the third day of Sivan, and part of what took place on the fourth day of the month of Sivan, including what Hashem said to separate from their wives and to cordon off the mountains so the people shouldn't be able to go up, and to prepare the people to be sanctified, and to tell the people be ready for on the third day you're going to get the Torah. And then what happened on the sixth day, that Hashem came down on the mountain, either sixth or seventh, depending on the machlekas, and that what Hashem told him afterwards, all the laws about not having idolatry and so on, and making an altar. And then in the end of Parshat Mishpatim, the Torah goes back to what took place on 4th of Sivan. It says, I have to fill in some information that I didn't really tell you. That really there's that Hashem and he's saying that Hashem told them to separate and to cordon off the mountain, and he told them all the Mishpatim. What are the Mishpatim? Rashi says he told them the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Nayach, and he told them the laws of Shabbos, all the things that had been told to them remember, this is describing what he told to them in the lead up to Matan Torah. What kind of Mishpatim did he have in the lead up to Matan Torah? The things that have been told to them, 7 mitzvahs which were already there, and the mitzvahs that were told to them in Morah, Shabbos, Paradum, and so on. And then the Torah, now at the end of Mishpatim, tells us what happened on the 5th of Sivan. So that's very, very strange. The Torah should finish the narrative, move on, and now come back. Paragraph 2. In this explanation of Rashi, there's also another difficulty. What is it? Those that explain the Torah that it is following the chronological order, they say that when it says in the end of Mishpatim that Moshe Rabbeinu came and told all the people the words of Hashem and all the laws, which laws is he talking about? The laws that the whole Parshas Mishpatim has been instructing us till now. And he says that those were told to Moshe on the day of the giving of the Torah. And that is what Moshe told the people. Right away he told it to them. So that makes Gvaldik, that's wonderful. But Rashi, when he says though that in the end of Mishpatim, when it says that Moshe taught the Jews the Mishpatim, it can't be the Mishpatim of Parshas Mishpatim, because they were only told in the 40 days and 40 nights. And Rashi says that this is a flashback to what took place before giving of the Torah. So what does he refer to? So according to Rashi, it comes out that the Torah is telling us the 6 days, Aseres HaDibros, and then it tells you what took place during those 40 days on the mountain, the Mishpatim, and then it goes back to 40-something days back. More than that, Nochmer, after all these dinim of the portion of Mishpatim, and after it says that Moshe was told to go up to Hashem, then it says that Hashem told Moshe. There's twice where it says at the end of our Parsha Mishpatim that Hashem told Moshe to come up to Hashem. First time is, the way Rashi learns, come up to Hashem before the Torah. Ale Elai Hahara, on the 4th of Sivan. Then a few psukim later it says, at the end of our Parsha, and to Moshe Hashem said, come up to get the luchos. That's after Matan Torah, right? So it comes out that Rashi, according to Rashi, the Parsha skips over and goes to an earlier story. It takes us back to the pre-Matan Torah. Why would it do that? Why would it do that? So it doesn't. I mean, we understand why Rashi says it, but it's bothersome. Why? Why would in other words, Rashi learns like that, but why would, in Rashi's understanding, why would the Torah teach it that way? So we could say the explanation is as follows. Paragraph 3. By Matan Torah, there were two things that were taking place. There was two tracks happening concurrently at the same time. First of all, Hashem was giving the Torah. It was Hashem transmitting his instructions and his halachas to the Yidden. Number two, the Yidden were inculcating and bringing into themselves, harnessing themselves, subjugating themselves, enslaving themselves, making themselves servants of Hashem. As we spoke last week in the Sikha of Yisrael, Mishu'abodim, to be totally subliminated, to be totally connected to Hashem, with no other interest, with no other want. Both of these, it's a two-tier thing, Hashem coming down, the people going up. Both of these aspects, we find that on the introduction to the giving of the Torah, the 2nd of Sivan, Hashem says, so you should tell the Jewish people, you saw what I took you out of Egypt. Now if you listen to my voice and you fulfill my covenant, you will be for me a special nation. So there's two things that has to be that you have to do, Yidden. One is listen to my voice, obey what I command you. And the other thing is guard my covenant. I'm going to make a covenant with you about keeping the Torah, and you have to fulfill this covenant in an everlasting way. In other words, I want you to be committed to me. You have to commit to me. I'm going to instruct you, and I want you to listen to that, and I want you from your side to commit to me. So on the 2nd of Sivan, Hashem told the Bnei Yisrael there's going to be two concurrent things happening. I'm going to communicate and instruct, and you're going to commit. And this is really later. So on the 2nd day of Sivan, Hashem says it as together in one statement as a two-tiered thing. Then Hashem starts in the Torah, starts describing each part of that track, each track in separate psukim. So the beginning is the track where Hashem comes down and communicates, and that's Parshas Yisrael. In Parshas Yisrael, we're talking mainly about the giving of the mitzvahs of the Torah, the 10 commandments. Even later, after that, where it says about giving the Mizbeach, that's a direct continuation to Matan Torah. But it says, you saw that I spoke to you from the mountain, therefore don't make any other images, only make an altar, only make a earth altar. In other words, this is all about the top down. This is all about Hashem's communication to the Bnei Yisrael, the Aseret Adibris, and so on. Therefore, when it talks about the preparation, the lead-up to the giving of the Torah, mostly it speaks about the instructions, the commandments that Hashem gave the Yidden as a preparatory stage for giving of the Torah. Separate from your wives, cordon off the mountain. And that's why the emphasis in Parshas Yisrael is about the way Hashem told the Jewish people what to do. When we come to Parshas Mishpatim, now the Torah is going back to the story of Sinai, but now the Torah is going to unpack and give us the details of the next track, of the concurrent track of the Bnei Yisrael going up to Hashem and committing themselves to Hashem. That's why in Parshas Mishpatim, the emphasis is about the covenant that Hashem makes with the Yidden, the fact that the Bnei Yisrael commit themselves in an everlasting covenant to be subservient to Hashem. How to do it? The things that are described in Parshas Mishpatim, to say Nasa and Nasa v'Nishma, we will do. The acceptance of the Yidden, the writing of a book of covenant, Sefer HaBris is written, building a Mizbeach, offering sacrifices, sprinkling blood, and even the fact that it repeats here the mitzvah of being separated and cordoning off the mountain, it's because there's some other details related, so it also relates those instructions by Hashem, which are more top-down, but it repeats them as well. Now, you may be questioning, whatever questions in the order, we just said that in the end of Parshas Mishpatim, that's where the Nasa v'Nishma is said. But you remember in Yisrael, it also says Nasa. It says the Rebbe, that's on the 2nd of Sivan. The 2nd of Sivan was still a general description of what took place. And then when the Yidden said Nasa, we will do, that's still, yes, on day 2, Hashem in the Torah describes both aspects. The things he's going to command, the things the Yidden do. So the Nasa is said there. But the Nasa v'Nishma that now is repeated here, that's said on the 4th day of the 4th day of Sivan, this is the Nasa v'Nishma that represents the bottom up, Bnei Yisrael committing themselves to be totally subservient and obedient to doing what Hashem wants. So basically, what we're saying is that there's, yes, the Torah is talking about the same event, but the Torah first describes the event the way it is from top down, and then it goes back and rewinds and describes the event it is with a more of an emphasis of the way it was bottom up. Paragraph 4. With this, we'll understand simply the continuum and the order of the parshas and what the parshas describe. First, the Torah says what the first aspect of Matan Torah was. Hashem's giving the commandments and the laws of Torah. It spells it out in full detail. What they did to prepare for Matan Torah, that Hashem gave them commandments of separating from their wives, cordoning off the mountains. Then it says that Hashem's giving the Torah, the 10 Commandments. Then it says about, right after that, that's about the Mizbeach. Then the things that Hashem told Moshe, the 40 days and 40 nights, Ve'ela Mishpatim, all the laws that we had in Parashat Mishpatim. And then once the Torah finishes that track of Hashem's instruction, top down, now we go back and recap and say what happened from the perspective of the bottom up of the Yidden connecting to Hashem. We'll also therefore understand why the Torah divides the story about Moshe Rabbeinu going up the mountain after Matan Torah. Because why does the Torah come and tell us this only after? After he describes the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu went up. Because also when the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai, there were two concepts. First of all, Hashem learned the Chukim and Mishpatim and the Eila Mishpatim and then all the laws that we just read in Mishpatim. Number two, Hashem was going to give him the Luchais Ha'ev, and Hashem was going to give him the tablets. The purpose of giving the Luchais is, simply speaking, not to be learned. They're not meant to be learning from the Luchais, but the Luchais are an everlasting testimony of the covenant that the Yidden are committed to Hashem. So that's Hashem teaching the Mishpatim and giving the Luchais. The Luchais are a symbol of the Yidden's commitment, bottom up to Hashem. And that's why we'll understand why the first aspect of the 40 days, which is Hashem teaching the Mishpatim, that's taught in a direct continuum of Parshas Yisro, which is all about Hashem's communication to Bnei Yisrael. Now the Torah recaps and says that Hashem said to Moshe, come up to me. We go back, rewind to Dalit even to talk about the bottom-up approach, what the Yidden did on their side. And then after that, it says, and Hashem told Moshe to come up to the mountain to get the Luchais. Because once we're describing, so we first told the whole top-down, including the 40 days, and the aspect of top-down in the 40 days, and then we go rewind to the 4th of Sivan. We say about the bottom-up, including also that Hashem told Moshe afterwards to come up and get the Luchais Habis, because that's also part of the bottom up. That's the commitment of the Bnei Yisrael. Paragraph 5. So we could say that this is also, Rashi is alluding to this by saying his comment on, he uses, we know we can always use from what he used as the heading. The heading is, Vel Moshe Omar Alei. To Moshe he said, come up. And he says, this parsha was said before the Aseres Adibris. There's two things we want to look at here. First of all, why does Rashi in the heading make such a long heading? Why does he say, and to Moshe he said, come up? He could have just said, and to Moshe he said, and Rashi would have said, this saying was from before Matan Torah. Also, why doesn't he say before Matan Torah? Why does he say before Aseres Adibris? Which is unusual and unique, and we need to pay attention because in the Gemara when he talks about it, he says before Matan Torah, before the giving of the Torah, doesn't call it Aseres Adibris. And also, when Rashi tells us in a few psukim later, when he says, Hashem said, Moshe, come up to me, when now he's inviting him up for the 40 days and 40 nights, he says, after Matan Torah, not after Aseres Adibris. So why when he says that Hashem told Moshe to come up, he says, before Aseres Adibris, he doesn't say before Matan Torah. And he uses the word alei, come up, in the heading. Whereas the next time when it says that Hashem told to Moshe alei, come up, he doesn't quote in the heading alei, and he says after, not after Aseres Adibris, after Matan Torah. what is being hinted to. But now we'll understand. Rashi is telling us that now when Hashem is saying come up, it's going to be to tell us about the second aspect of what took place in Matan Torah. We discussed the first aspect, the top down. Now we're going to be talking about bottom up. Alei. That's why he includes in the heading the word Alei, because now this description is about the ascent of the Jewish people to connect to Hashem. And also he calls it Aseres Adibres. Why does he call it Aseres Adibres? It doesn't say Matan Torah. Because he's saying it was said before Aseres Adibres. Aseres Adibres is the top down. He says this is really said before that, but we haven't discussed it yet because we had only discussed Aseres Adibres. And then afterwards, when we say that that the next time it says Moshe was told to come up, it says it's after Matan Torah because that's after the entire process. The Bnei Yisrael had already done also their Aliyah as an introduction to Matan Torah. Yeah. So similarly, paragraph 6. According to this, we'll also understand the reason of how the next parashas work. What comes after Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Truma. According to the way that Rashi holds it, there's different opinions about when when Moshe was instructed about the Mishkan. Rashi learns that the instruction came after the story of the Egel. Now, where's the story of the Egel, the golden calf, related in Parshas Kitisa? So we have Mishpatim, which we're just learning now. Truma, Tetzaveh about the Mishkan, and then Kitisa, which speaks about the Egel. But what we're saying now is that really Truma and Tetzaveh were instructed after the Egel, so it should be after Kitisa. Why is it connected to Mishpatim and before Kitisa, before the story of the Egel? But now we'll understand. Because Mishpatim, the end of Mishpatim, speaks about the ascent, right? About the ascent of the Bnei Yisrael, that aspect of Matan Torah, of their ascent to Hashem. And what is the absolute culmination of this ascent to Hashem? It's building a Mishkan. What is the Mishkan all about? The Mishkan is about building a place for Hashem, and I will dwell therein. It's about elevating the world to create a dwelling place for Hashem. So now it makes perfect sense. Let's get the flow here. We have Yisrael, which up to day 2, it's a description of what's going to happen in Matan Torah. In day 2, Hashem says there's a 2 tracks here. Then it's up, down, down, up. Then it continues to say all the Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, Hashem's instructions, and it's focused on Hashem's descent downwards, giving the Torah. And it follows all the way through to Parshas Mishpatim, the stuff, the laws that Moshe Rabbeinu heard during the 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain, right? Because that's all given from Hashem. Then the Torah goes and says, rewind. We're going to talk about what took place on the 4th and 5th of Sivan, the preparations that the Bnei Yisrael did, the way they ascended, the Nasav and Nishma that they said. And then it continues with Hashem told Moshe to come up in 40 days, 40 nights. Now we're in this mode of talking about how the Bnei Yisrael go up. It automatically continues to the culmination of that, which is making a Mishkan, which is elevating the world to be a dwelling place for Hashem, right? So that's why it's connected to Parshas Mishpatim, the end of Parshas Mishpatim. Paragraph 7, the explanation of this in the Pnimius. It says in the Medrash that by Matan Torah there were 2 things that took place. The Medrash says, the full language of the Medrash is, it's like a king who made a decree that the people from Rome can't go down to Syria, and the people of Rome, Bnei Remi, lo yerdu l'Syria, Bnei. So I don't remember the lashon of the Medrash, but I'll call upon him that there's the Elyonim can't go to the Tachtonim. Just 1 second. Open the Medrash. Medrash says like this. It's a mashal of a king who said, "B'nei Romi lo yerdu l'Syria," the people of Rome can't go down to Syria. The people of Syria lo yalim can't go to Romi. Similarly, when Hashem created heaven and earth, He says, "Hashemayim, Shemayim l'Hashem," the heavens for Hashem. V'oras asan v'yodam, the earth goes to people. When He wanted to give the Torah, bitel gezerah rishona, He cancelled out that first decree that there can't be up can't go down, down can't go up, and He said, the lower worlds will ascend to the higher worlds, the higher worlds will descend to the lower worlds, and I will begin it, as it says, Vayered Hashem al Sinai, Hashem came down on Sinai, and then it says, Vel Moshe Omar alei el Hashem, to Moshe He said, go up to Hashem. So we see that there's Tachtenim Yeldu, and Elyonim Yerdu, and Tachtenim Yeldu. Okay. So this is the difference between the two parshas in Matan Torah. Parshas Yisrei, Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Yisrei is Vayered Hashem al Sinai, Hashem coming down. Parsha, and that's Adibris. In our parsha is mostly Tachtenim Yalu. It's about coming up to Hashem, saying Nasa before Nishma, building the Mizbeach, offering up the Korbanos, making the covenant. What's the difference between these two levels? In the epic revelation that came from above at the time of Matan Torah, Hashem's holy throne came down, and they heard from Hashem from all corners. That was just temporary. Afterwards, the mountain didn't retain its holiness. After Hashem ascended from the mountain, anybody could go there. However, once the Yidden became Avdei Hashem, their elevation, the fact that they became Verei Mamtonu, they became exalted over all nations, and they became servants of Hashem, that's an eternal thing. That doesn't stop after Matan Torah. Why? Because since it's coming from and initiated by the Avodah of the people below, so it becomes totally and firmly entrenched and part of who they are. Their entity has changed, and now they are Verei Mamtanu, they're servants of Hashem, they're forever exalted and connected to Hashem. And this is also the reason why the instruction of building the Mishkan is connected dafka to the second aspect of Matan Torah, the ascent from below, the Alei El Hashem, because this aspect of the dwelling of Hashem in the Mishkan is different than the way Hashem dwelled in the physical when He came down on the mountain. The dwelling in the Mishkan happened through the deeds, through the actions of the Bnei Yisrael. V'asu li mikdash, they shall make for me a mikdash. And therefore, when the Shekhinah came there, it came in a way that it was forever entrenched and placed in a permanent way into the actual object, into the physicality of the Mishkan, which is not the case in Matan Torah. When the moment that the Yovel, the moment that the shofar stopped sounding, the Shekhinah went away, and everybody could go. They became mundane. This inyan of making the Mishkan is a continuation of Tachtenim Yaladim, that the lower worlds go up to the higher worlds, which started in Matan Torah, and its culmination is that it is able to make that even when there's the revelation of Hashem into the Mishkan, which is top down, it becomes in a way of the advantage of the work from below, and it becomes a permanent thing. This is the secret.